Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature Channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight, because we're about to drift along one of the planet's most graceful lifelines, rivers. Wherever you are, let yourself relax. Let your breathing soften, like ripples widening on calm water. Imagine lying on a riverbank at dusk, the world quiet except for the murmur of flowing water and the rustle of reeds in the wind. Rivers are the veins of earth, ancient travelers that carve through mountains, feed forests, and carry whispers of rain back to the sea. Some are older than entire mountain ranges. Others vanish underground or bloom from glaciers high above the clouds. As you listen, imagine drifting gently downstream, carried by clear water, glinting in soft light. Tonight, we'll journey through their hidden stories, how they shape the land, cradle life, and flow endlessly in a rhythm that never sleeps. If you enjoy these calm journeys through nature's heart, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, just rest. Let's begin our quiet voyage. The Amazon River carries more water than any other river on Earth, enough to fill over 1,000 Olympic pools every second. It winds for more than 4,000 miles from the Andes to the Atlantic, breathing mist and rain back into the sky. Beneath its surface, pink river dolphins glide through tea-colored water, their skin glowing softly in the light that filters from above. Every drop here has already fallen as rain, drifted through roots, and returned again, a circle without beginning or end. Some rivers glow at night. In certain places, bioluminescent plankton light up their surfaces, turning dark water into a stream of blue fire. Paddle quietly, and your oar might draw ribbons of light behind it, tiny living sparks reacting to your touch. It's nature's lantern show, a secret only seen when the world grows still enough to notice. The Nile is one of the oldest rivers still flowing in the same course, older than the pyramids and once worshipped as a god. It carried silt and life across deserts, creating fertile banks where civilizations began. Even now, it rises and falls with the rhythm of distant rains, a heartbeat echoing across thousands of years. There are rivers beneath the ice in Antarctica, slow, hidden currents sliding silently under glaciers. They never see sunlight, yet they move with purpose, carving valleys and carrying ancient secrets. Scientists say some of these subglacial rivers haven't touched the open air for millions of years, an entire watery world beneath the frozen one we know. Not all rivers flow on the surface. Some, like the Okavango in Botswana, spread into the land and disappear. Instead of reaching the sea, they dissolve into grasslands, creating a living oasis where elephants bathe, herons stalk, and the air hums with insects. When the rains fade, the river retreats, not gone, just sleeping, waiting for the next storm to wake it. Rivers carve stone like time itself. The Grand Canyon, for instance, began as a trickle, then a stream, then a force that cut a mile into solid rock. It took millions of years of persistence, drop by drop, to create those vast cliffs. Standing at the edge, it's hard to imagine that something as gentle as water could shape something so monumental. There are rivers made of sand too, shifting golden currents that flow only when rare rain comes to the desert. They exist for mere hours, surging across dry earth, leaving behind brief pools where seeds awaken and frogs sing. Even in the harshest landscapes, Rivers find a way to return, however fleetingly. Each river has its own voice. Some murmur softly over stones. Others roar through narrow canyons. Some whisper under the moonlight, so gently you can mistake them for breathing. If you listen closely, every river carries a song, not just of movement, but of memory. Water that once fell as snow or as rain 1,000 miles away. Far to the north, in the Arctic, rivers freeze from the edges inward, but they never stop entirely. Beneath the ice, the current still flows, unseen but alive. The surface may seem still, yet below it, the world continues its slow, silent journey toward the sea. Even underground, rivers continue their work. They carve vast crystal caves, their waters clear as glass. In Mexico's Yucatan, these hidden rivers shimmer with blue light, lined by limestone walls and stalactites that have been forming for ages. Divers say swimming there feels like drifting through the veins of the earth itself. Some rivers change color with the seasons. In Colombia, the Caño Cristales glows in shades of red, pink, and green, thanks to aquatic plants that bloom beneath its clear water. Locals call it the River of 5 Colors, a living rainbow that lasts only while conditions are perfect. When the dry season ends, it fades back to quiet transparency, waiting for its next moment of magic. Rivers even exist in the sky. They're not made of liquid, but vapor, streams of moist air that travel across continents, feeding clouds and storms. These atmospheric rivers can carry more water than any river on the ground, though we can't see them. The rain you hear tonight might have drifted across oceans before falling where you are. And finally, remember this: every river you've ever seen, from the smallest stream to the widest delta, is part of one single cycle. The same water that once filled ancient seas now flows through mountain valleys, through your own veins, and will one day rise again as mist. Rivers don't end. They return. Now, imagine yourself floating downstream, the water calm, the stars reflecting above. The current carries you gently, steady, slow, and timeless. You don't need to paddle, just drift. The river knows the way. Imagine waking up with sunlight rippling through water, soft reflections dancing across your face. The river is wide here, moving slowly between green banks that bend and stretch toward the horizon. Mist rises from its surface like breath in cool morning air. Somewhere far off, a bird calls once, then again, its echo blending with the rhythm of the current. Every river begins as a whisper, high in the mountains where snow melts and trickles between rocks. The first droplets gather. They join others, merging into tiny channels that braid together and tumble downhill. Some of the clearest rivers in the world are born this way, from glaciers that have held the same ice for thousands of years. As they melt, the water carries a faint blue shimmer, colored by the minerals of ancient stone. It's like the mountains themselves are exhaling, sending pieces of their history down into the valleys below. There are rivers that vanish into the ground, slipping beneath limestone and reappearing miles away, as though they were ghosts traveling through the dark. In Slovenia, the Socha River glows turquoise as it winds through marble cliffs. Locals call it the Emerald River, and it truly seems to shine from within. Its clarity is so perfect that fish look as though they're suspended in air, floating between worlds. Some rivers change with the tide. The Amazon's mouth breathes in and out like a living lung, rising and falling as the ocean pulls on it. when the tide rushes inland, it creates a traveling wave, a wall of water called the pororoca. It can surge for miles, breaking trees, reshaping sandbanks, and reminding even the largest river that it too must bow to the sea. Far to the north, the Lena River in Siberia freezes into silence each winter. But when spring comes, the thaw releases billions of tons of ice all at once. The sound is like distant thunder rolling across the tundra. The river breaks free in fragments, carrying entire fields of ice downstream, glittering beneath the returning sun. Some rivers have no end in sight. The Nile, flowing through desert, seems eternal. Every year, its floods once spread life across Egypt's sands, leaving behind rich soil that fed civilizations. Farmers still watch its waters rise as their ancestors did, measuring hope in inches and tides. Even now, satellite images reveal the same patterns, green ribbons winding through gold, proof that the river's gift continues. Not all rivers run in daylight. Deep underground in caverns of absolute blackness, streams trickle unseen. They carry minerals that crystallize into delicate forms, white curtains of calcite, needle-thin stalactites that drip slowly, drop by drop, over centuries. These secret waters sculpt worlds no sunlight has ever touched. Sometimes, rivers run backwards, not by magic, but by the slow work of Earth itself. The Mississippi has reversed its flow during powerful floods, when the sea and storms push harder than gravity can pull. In those moments, the river obeys the wind and tide, proving that even nature's strongest forces can be persuaded to change direction. When rivers meet the sea, they don't simply end. Their waters spread into deltas, wide, fan-shaped worlds where land and water share a heartbeat. Here, reeds sway, fish dart through roots, and new islands form from drifting silt. The Nile, the Ganges, the Mekong, all of them bloom at their mouths, creating nurseries for life. Deltas are where the river lets go, but also where it gives the most. There are places where rivers flow red, stained not with clay, but with iron-rich earth. In Madagascar, one such river glows rust-colored under the sun, winding through forest like a molten thread. In Iceland, others run milky white with glacial silt, shimmering under northern light. Each carries its own story, written in minerals, the language of rock translated by water. In Africa, the Congo River roars through canyons so deep that sunlight rarely reaches the bottom. It's one of the only major rivers that crosses the equator twice, a path that confuses its weather and fills it with endless rain. In its depths live creatures found nowhere else on Earth, blind and pale, shaped by eternal darkness and current. Rivers carry not just water, but sound. If you close your eyes beside one, you can hear its layers, the soft hiss of bubbles, the heavy splash of current against stone, the subtle rhythm that never repeats exactly. Scientists have found that listening to running water can calm the heart and slow the breath, as if the body recognizes its own origins in the flow. And sometimes, when rain falls just right, rivers sing, thin reeds hum in the wind, stones rattle in the current, and the whole valley seems to vibrate. In those rare moments, you can almost believe the earth itself is playing music, soft, endless, and alive. Now the sun sets, the water darkens, catching the last gold light between gentle ripples. You drift along, weightless, the sound of the current wrapping around you like a lullaby. The day fades into blue shadow, and the river keeps moving. patient, eternal, and calm. Night settles slowly over the river, spreading soft silver light across its surface. The stars appear one by one, mirrored perfectly in the water, so that the world above and below seem to blend into one continuous sky. You float quietly, the current steady beneath you, and for a moment there is no sense of direction, only the gentle pull forward, onward, through time and reflection. Every river remembers the rain that made it. When storms pass far away, the water gathers, whispering through soil and roots until it finds its way back into the stream. The journey may take hours, days, or even centuries as it seeps through stone before rejoining the current. What you see tonight, this calm, moving surface, might carry a single drop of rain that once fell before your lifetime. Rivers shape memory into land. In mountain valleys, they carve terraces where ancient civilizations once planted crops. In floodplains, they leave behind rich black soil that smells faintly of life renewed. Farmers across the world still follow the old rhythm: sow after the flood, harvest before the next rise. The river is both clock and calendar, reminding the earth when to begin again. There are places where rivers meet deserts, and life clings to them like green ribbons in a sea of gold. The Nile does this, yes, but so does the Indus, the Tigris, and the Euphrates, cradles of history where water once determined the fate of entire empires. Even now, satellites trace the faint shadows of those ancient channels, ghost rivers still shaping the dust. In China, the Yangtze flows past cliffs so steep they vanish into mist. Boatmen once sang to the river there, long songs that echoed between the walls to guide each other through hidden turns. The songs carried not just directions but gratitude for safe passage, for fish, for another dawn. To live by a river was to learn its moods, when to cross, when to wait, when to listen. Some rivers never see the sun. In vast caves beneath Vietnam, rivers run through chambers as tall as cathedrals. The air there is cool and echoes faintly, and the water glows blue from light, filtering through distant cracks in the rock. Fish drift without eyes. Bats skim the surface and vanish into darkness. The river moves on, unhurried, following gravity's invisible hand through a world that humans can only visit for a moment. In the far north, rivers freeze into silent roads. Locals travel across their frozen backs in winter, sleds gliding over what months ago was a torrent. Beneath the ice, water still flows, quiet, hidden, persistent. When spring returns, the ice breaks open with a sound like distant thunder, and the river exhales a mist so cold it glitters like dust in the air. There are rivers that glow green under the moon because of tiny organisms drifting near the surface. When touched, they release a soft luminescence, living light born from plankton, turning night into a slow-moving galaxy. Those who've seen it say it feels like floating among stars, the boundary between water and sky erased. The Amazon's tributaries form an entire lacework of movement. Thousands of rivers braiding through the forest, feeding lakes, streams, and marshes. Many never meet the ocean directly. Instead, they vanish into wetlands that breathe mist each morning. Somewhere in that endless maze, rain from the Andes meets the breath of the Atlantic. It's one of the quietest and most powerful convergences on Earth. Rivers connect mountains to seas, glaciers to coral reefs. Without them, the oceans would be starved of minerals. The dust carried by their flow becomes food for plankton far away, which in turn feeds fish, which feed entire coasts. When a river runs dry, the effect ripples outward across continents, as if the planet itself were missing a heartbeat. And yet, rivers endure. They twist, change, vanish, and return, always seeking the lowest place, always finding a path. Even when dammed or diverted, they remember where they once ran. You can still trace their ghost lines in the land, like veins beneath the skin of the earth. On quiet nights, if you sit near a riverbank and listen closely, you can sometimes hear the soft click of pebbles shifting in the current, tiny stones polished over years into smoothness. The river makes its own music, note by note, each grain of sand part of a melody that's been playing since the beginning of time. You breathe slowly now. The air smells of water and silt and something ancient, something familiar. Maybe it's the scent of rain before it falls, or the memory of every river that's ever touched your skin. The current carries you gently past reeds that whisper, past willows that lean low to drink, past the glimmer of moonlight breaking into ripples. Somewhere ahead, the river bends, and beyond it lies more water, more time, more calm. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't stop. By morning, the mist has thinned into ribbons of silver drifting just above the surface. The river looks endless again, a slow-moving mirror reflecting clouds that wander like dreams. The air is cool, soft, and damp with the scent of wet earth. Each breath you take feels as though it has passed through the lungs of mountains and forests before finding you here. Upstream, where the river is still young, the water runs fast and wild. It leaps over stones, foaming white, roaring as it meets obstacles. Here, the sound is energy itself, the kind that carves valleys and sculpts cliffs. A single drop of rain might fall on a distant peak and begin a journey thousands of miles long, tumbling through gorges, widening, slowing, until one day it becomes part of the calm current that drifts through cities or deltas. Every river begins with restlessness, then learns peace. There are rivers that change their color, like moods. In certain parts of Iceland, glacial rivers shimmer pale blue with fine silt, tiny ground minerals carried down from ice fields. In spring, they glow milky white under the midnight sun. By autumn, they deepen to gray as rainwater feeds them. The color tells a story of what the river has touched: stone, moss, ash, or snow, the hues of its travels. In India, the Ganges is more than water. It is sacred, a river believed to cleanse the soul. Millions bathe in its currents every year, letting the water carry away burdens they cannot name. Scientists studying it have discovered something extraordinary. The Ganges water resists decay longer than most rivers, its chemistry quietly purifying itself as it flows. Faith and science meet there in an unspoken harmony, both seeing in it something eternal. Some rivers never reach the sea. The Tarim River in China ends in the desert, slowly vanishing into sand. Yet even there, life blooms. Tamarisk trees, reeds, and herds of camels drink from what remains. It's as if the river refuses to be forgotten, leaving behind a memory of green in the middle of emptiness. Every bend in a river is an answer to time. Water doesn't rush straight. It curves. It pauses at the edges, touches each bank gently, then turns. These meanders are the handwriting of patience, the river teaching the land how to soften. Over centuries, it loops and loops until it draws an entire valley out of solid ground. In Africa's Okavango Delta, The river spreads wide and flat, splitting into thousands of channels that weave through reeds and lilies. It's called a living mosaic, part water, part land, always changing. Elephants wade through shallow pools. Kingfishers flash like sparks across the surface. The air hums with insects and soft ripples. It's a place where water chooses to stay instead of leaving, a resting river. Some rivers have secrets we can't see, currents that twist beneath the surface like thoughts beneath calm words. A still river isn't always still. Beneath the glassy top, powerful layers of motion spin and fold. That hidden energy keeps the ecosystem alive, mixing oxygen, feeding plants, moving unseen life from one place to another. In this way, even quiet water is full of motion. Far downstream, the river becomes something wider than memory. It carries the scent of all it has touched: pine forests, volcanic dust, flowers that bloomed for a single season. You can almost smell the entire journey in a single breath. Rivers hold the memory of rain, but they also hold the memory of sunlight, the warmth that lifted that rain in the first place. There's a river in Canada, the Nahanni, that disappears into deep canyons wrapped in mist. From above, it looks like a silver ribbon vanishing into cloud. The Dean people call it the River of Spirits. It runs through limestone cliffs where waterfalls tumble in slow motion, their spray turning into rainbows that hang in midair. The air there feels ancient, as though the river remembers the world before names. Some rivers whisper to the wind. Along their banks, reeds sway in patterns that sound almost like breath. When the breeze passes through them, the sound becomes music, a trembling, sighing tone that seems to rise directly from the water itself. It's nature's quiet conversation, always changing, never repeating. And when rain begins again, soft, hesitant drops on the surface, you can hear the river answering. The sound deepens, more voices join in. The patter of rain, the murmur of current, the occasional splash of a fish breaking through. It's the sound of the water welcoming its own return. The river, like time, never stays but never truly leaves. It carries everything forward: leaves, light, reflections, even your thoughts. And yet, if you come back years later, you'll find it there, flowing with the same grace, speaking the same soft language of motion and calm. Now, the day fades again. The river glows with the last golden light before dusk, and you can see the outline of trees mirrored in its surface, stretching toward eternity. You lean back, listening, and let it carry you. There's nowhere to go and nowhere else to be. Just the river, always here, always moving, always home. Dusk settles like silk across the water. The horizon softens and the river glows faintly, not from sunlight anymore, but from the lingering warmth of the day. Fireflies begin to shimmer along the banks, their light mirrored perfectly in the slow-moving surface. It feels as though the stars have drifted down to rest for a moment, floating beside you in the current. Up ahead, the river widens. It moves slower now, more deliberate, as if it's taking a breath after a long journey. You can sense the weight of distance behind it. Mountains, rain, forests, stones, all the places this water has touched before finding its way here. Rivers never forget where they've been. Every drop carries the memory of clouds, of snowmelt, of the wind that once pushed it across the sky. There are rivers so old they predate the continents themselves. The Finke River in Australia is one of them, older than the Himalayas, older than most living species. It has cut through red rock for nearly 350 million years, surviving ice ages and droughts. Its path is a map of deep time, a story too long for words, written in curves of stone and sediment. In the Arctic, some rivers only awaken for a few months each year. When the thaw comes, they race across tundra fields, turning white with foam as they carry snowmelt toward distant seas. And then, just as suddenly, they freeze again, still, silent, asleep until the next spring sun arrives. Even in their sleep, the water waits patiently beneath ice, dreaming of motion. Sometimes, rivers meet each other and never truly mix. In Switzerland, where the Rhone and the Arve converge, two distinct colors, one milky gray from glacial silt, one deep blue, flow side by side for miles before finally blending. It's a breathtaking sight, like watching two worlds learning how to share the same path. Some rivers move upward before they fall. In deserts where the wind blows strong enough, sheets of water can lift briefly into the air, spinning into white spirals. These wind-sculpted rivers of mist rise like ghosts, shimmering for a heartbeat before settling back down. They remind you that even the gentlest element can sometimes defy gravity, if only for a moment. The Danube flows through 10 countries, changing languages and landscapes, but never its nature. Along its banks, music was born, waltzes, lullabies, and folk songs inspired by the rhythm of its waves. In some places, people say the river hums softly at night, the sound of water against bridges blending with distant bells. It's a lullaby shared by nations, one long note that carries through centuries. There's a river in Croatia that disappears into the earth and reemerges as waterfalls tumbling from emerald cliffs. The Plitvice lakes are connected by this hidden flow, each one spilling into the next like steps of glass. The water is so clear that it reflects the sky perfectly. So when you look down, it's like staring into another world, an upside-down forest where trees grow in clouds. Rivers are everywhere, even where we can't see them. Beneath your feet, groundwater moves through sand and stone, flowing in silence beneath fields, cities, and roots. These hidden rivers keep forests alive, feeding springs that bubble out as mountain brooks. If you could see them all at once, the surface rivers, the buried ones, the frozen, the unseen, the planet would look like a glowing web of blue light pulsing softly across its skin. In some places, rivers hum with minerals that make them shimmer gold under the sun. In Peru's Tambopata River, particles of mica catch the light and scatter it in all directions, making the surface glitter as if scattered with dust from the stars. Locals call it El Rio de Luz, the River of Light. To drift down it at sunset is to float through a galaxy turned to water. There's an old belief, whispered in villages along mountain streams, that if you follow a river from its mouth to its source without turning back, it will show you something about yourself, the way you change, the way you circle back, the way you continue even when the path bends. Maybe that's why people are drawn to rivers when they need to think. Water listens, but it also teaches. As night deepens, the river begins to glow again with moonlight. You can hear frogs starting to sing, their voices blending with the rhythm of the current. Somewhere, an owl calls once, its echo carried downstream like a note in a long song. You close your eyes and feel the motion beneath you, steady, cool, endless. The water cradles you gently, carrying you farther than dreams can reach. There's no hurry here. The river knows the way. The night deepens until the river becomes a ribbon of silver, threading between dark silhouettes of trees. Mist drifts low over the surface, curling and dissolving like breath in the cool air. The moon hangs pale and patient above, its reflection trembling on the slow current. You can almost imagine the water exhaling, a long, steady sigh that has continued for millions of years. Every river has a secret life at night. Beneath the calm surface, invisible worlds awaken. Fish move softly among submerged roots, their scales catching traces of moonlight. Tiny insects skim the water, leaving faint rings that spread and vanish without a sound. The river never sleeps, it only changes rhythm. When daylight fades, its heartbeat slows, and its voice lowers to a whisper. You can feel more than hear. Some rivers glow when touched. In warm tropical bays, microscopic plankton fill the water with pale blue light, each particle flaring briefly as if startled awake. Dip your hand into the current, and your fingers trail stars. Every motion sparks a constellation, alive for a heartbeat, before returning to darkness. Sailors once thought these glowing waters were the breath of the ocean itself, proof that even in darkness, life never truly rests. Far below the surface of forests, other rivers flow unseen. In the Yucatan Peninsula, they wind through limestone caverns, weaving under roots and stone. Divers who explore them describe the feeling of flying, weightless, surrounded by glass-clear water and the shimmer of ancient rock. The Maya called these places sacred gateways between worlds, believing that every drop carried the memory of creation. When you listen to those underground waters, you can almost believe it. Some rivers sound different from all others. Their voices depend on what lies beneath: soft mud, sharp gravel, smooth pebbles, or hollow reeds. A river over sand murmurs like sleep. A river over stone sings higher, the notes sparkling and sharp. Scientists have measured these sounds and found that each river's tone is unique, like a fingerprint made of motion. Yet to the heart, they all speak the same language: calm, flowing, eternal. There are rivers so pure they seem made of light. In New Zealand's South Island, Blue Lake holds water so clear that visibility reaches more than 80 meters. Gazing into it feels like staring through air itself. Stones rest at the bottom as if floating, each detail untouched by distortion. The Maori call it the Lake of Peaceful Lands, and its stillness seems to hold time in suspension, proof that purity in nature is simply stillness made visible. In other places, rivers wander endlessly in wide, slow circles. In the Canadian delta of the Mackenzie, the water splits and rejoins again and again, never quite deciding where to go. Channels twist through reeds, pools gather and fade, and the whole landscape seems to breathe. Here, the river teaches patience, that even movement can have rest, and rest can still be full of life. Some rivers blur the line between water and forest. In the heart of the Amazon, floods arrive quietly each year, rising until trees stand waist-deep in clear brown water. Fish swim among branches, birds perch on half-submerged roots, and sunlight filters down in shifting patterns. When the flood retreats months later, the trees are left shining with silt, the soil richer than before. It is not destruction, it is the forest breathing in water and breathing it back out again In the cloud forests of Costa Rica, streams fall from cliffs so high that they turn to mist before touching the ground. The wind catches them, scattering each drop into air. These ghost waterfalls never reach the river below, yet they still feed the forest, their moisture captured by moss and leaves. It is a reminder that even unfinished journeys can nourish the world. Far north, the Arctic rivers lie under ice, their surfaces frozen into white glass. Yet, beneath the frozen crust, the current continues, slow but steady, carrying the same water that once danced freely under summer sun. When the ice finally cracks in spring, the sound echoes for miles, a deep, resonant groan as the river exhales after its long sleep. The first rush of meltwater sparkles like liquid dawn. Sometimes rivers and sky become one. On still nights, the stars reflect so clearly that it's hard to tell which direction is up. You might look down and feel as though you are floating through the heavens themselves, constellations shimmering in both directions, the Milky Way mirrored in motion. In that moment, you realize the river is not just water. It's the earth remembering the sky. Even when rivers rise beyond their banks, it is not fury, but renewal. The overflow spreads seeds, restores minerals, and carries nutrients to fields waiting for new growth. What seems like chaos is simply the next beginning. The water's purpose has never been destruction. It is change, and change always leads back to life. If you walk by a river at dawn, you'll notice how it greets the light. The mist glows faintly pink, birds begin their morning songs, and the surface reflects the first pale streaks of day. Every droplet glitters for a moment, then drifts away. The river doesn't cling to light nor fear the dark. It simply flows, constant, accepting, alive. Listen closely now. The sound of the current blends with your breath. The rhythm is the same. In, out, forward, onward. The water carries the memory of rain, and you carry the rhythm of water. You and the river are not separate things. You are part of the same quiet motion, the same endless breath of earth. Morning arrives like a soft unveiling. The sky ripens from gray to gold, and the first sunlight slides across the river's surface. It catches in ripples, splinters into brightness, and dances across your eyes until you can't tell if it's light or water you're seeing. The world feels freshly washed, as if the river has been up all night, cleaning the edges of the earth. Mist drifts upward, slow and luminous. Every droplet carries a memory of where it came from. Mountain rain, ocean vapor, the breath of trees. You realize that what you're watching isn't just scenery. It's a cycle unfolding before you, the same exchange that keeps the planet alive. Water rises, falls, flows, and begins again, endlessly gentle in its persistence. Downstream, the river begins to widen. The air grows warmer, saltier, touched by the nearness of the sea. You can feel the shift long before you see it. The rhythm of the current softens. The pull of tides begins to whisper back. The river that once roared in mountain canyons now moves with the patience of age. It has become wise. In estuaries where rivers meet the ocean, the world changes texture. Fresh water mingles with salt, and the surface ripples with subtle patterns of difference, ribbons of silver, streaks of jade. Here, life multiplies wildly. Tiny fish flicker through reeds, feeding on what the tide delivers. Crabs scuttle through shifting sands, their tracks erased by the next small wave. It's a world built on impermanence, yet perfectly balanced within it. Somewhere far off, A heron moves like a thought through the shallows. It steps slowly, barely rippling the water, its reflection gliding beneath it like a twin. Every movement feels deliberate, as if even the bird understands that this place is sacred, where the river learns to let go. The Ganges, the Nile, the Mississippi, they all end this way, not in finality, but in surrender. They arrive at the sea and dissolve, offering up everything they've gathered along the journey: mountain minerals, forest dust, traces of rain. They become something vaster, indistinguishable from the waves they once fed. It's not an ending, it's a merging. There are moments when you can feel this same quiet truth in yourself. We are rivers too, each thought a current, each breath a tide. We gather experiences like tributaries, winding through the landscapes of our days, carving paths through time. And someday, like every river, we return to the source from which we came. In deltas where land meets sea, the water slows until it almost forgets to move. It spreads into shining threads, forming islands that shift with every season. Reeds rise tall from the shallows, their tips catching morning light like tiny lamps. Birds circle above, calling softly, their echoes folding into the mist. This is where the river's story becomes the sea's, two voices blending into one continuous song. Sometimes, when the tide pulls against the current, the water seems to hesitate, a moment of stillness between directions. It feels like the entire planet is holding its breath. And then, slowly, the motion resumes, each drop choosing its path. Even hesitation has purpose. It teaches the river how to listen before moving on. There are rivers that never reach the ocean, their waters lost to sand or sky. Yet, even they complete this cycle, evaporating into clouds that will one day rain again. No river is wasted. Everyone finds its way home, in one form or another. The Amazon sends so much fresh water into the Atlantic that it can be tasted 100 miles from shore. From space, its plume of pale green stretches far into the deep blue of the ocean, a visible signature of connection between land and sea. The two do not compete, they complete each other. The river carries you now, slowly, gently, toward the horizon. You can hear the faint rush of waves ahead, the ocean calling not with urgency, but with welcome. The current grows deeper, steadier. Beneath the surface, fresh water mingles with salt, and the boundary disappears. The air tastes different here, full of warmth and openness. For a moment, you drift between worlds, not land, not sea, not river, just movement, just light. The same rhythm that shaped mountains, carved valleys, and carried seeds downstream now holds you in its arms. As the sun rises fully, the mist fades. The river opens wide, meeting the sea in a slow embrace. No edges, no ending, only continuity. The current that began as a whisper in a distant glacier has completed its long circle of return. You breathe in. The wind smells of salt, of distance, a beginning. The river is gone now, but also everywhere, in the air, in the waves, in the clouds waiting to form. And somewhere high in the mountains, unseen and quiet, a single drop of water begins to fall again. Evening deepens over the estuary, and the first stars tremble on the horizon. The river has finally met the sea. But its story continues beyond sight. The tide folds it outward, scattering its spirit into waves that carry whispers back into the sky. You can feel it in the air, the faint shimmer of moisture rising, unseen yet alive. The cycle turns again, and what once was river begins to remember how to fly. The ocean stretches endlessly ahead, breathing in slow, steady tides. Every wave is the echo of a river's heart, pulsing across continents. The sound is deeper here, the low rhythm of the planet itself. Water folds over water, layer upon layer, and in the moonlight it gleams like liquid glass. Somewhere beyond the horizon, this same ocean feeds clouds that drift toward distant mountains, ready to fall as rain. The river's journey never truly stops. It only changes form, shape, and song. You watch the sea meeting the sky, and it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. The surface mirrors the heavens perfectly, stars trembling above and below, galaxies reflected in a sheet of motion. The river has become something greater, a bridge of light connecting what is below to what is beyond. In that reflection, you understand. Water is not bound by place. It is memory carried in liquid form. When sunlight touches the sea in the morning, countless droplets lift upward. It happens quietly, invisibly, a slow exhalation that fills the sky. Evaporation, the scientists call it. But there is a poetry to it far older than words. Each rising droplet carries a story, the scent of pine, the chill of snowmelt, the taste of mountain stone. Rising through warm air, it drifts toward colder layers where it will meet others and gather into clouds. A river unspools upward, soft and weightless. High above, clouds form from these invisible threads. Seen from far away, they look solid, but they are full of motion, endless spirals of mist and light. The water that once brushed your fingers in a stream now floats miles above the earth, carried by wind. It will travel across oceans, over deserts, through nights and dawns, until the world asks for rain again. The sky is simply the river's gentler half. Sometimes, rivers return home in the quietest ways. A morning fog creeping over a forest is a river remembering its shape. Dew collecting on a single blade of grass is the ocean resting for a moment. Rain tapping against a window might have once flowed through a canyon or fallen as snow on a faraway peak. Each drop carries the same ancient rhythm. Lift, drift, fall, flow, the eternal breath of the planet. From high above, looking down from where clouds travel, the earth seems alive with silver threads. You could trace them from source to sea, the Amazon spreading like veins, the Nile cutting through gold, the Mississippi coiling through green and brown. They shimmer faintly under the sun, glowing like the pathways of a vast, living heart. The rivers below and the air above are one circulatory system, earth breathing water instead of air. In the Himalayas, water rises twice. First as mist climbing the cliffs at dawn, and again as snow drifting down at night. Each cycle is slower there, stretched across months of cold and silence. The rivers sleep beneath ice, dreaming of the day they will awaken again, melt, and begin their descent. Even frozen, they are still part of the motion, still the same pulse running quietly beneath the surface. As clouds gather, the air becomes heavy and sweet, thick with salt and promise. Somewhere above the horizon, lightning flickers. Not anger, but energy returning home. Rain begins as whispers. The first drops fall into the sea, tiny circles spreading across the surface. Others find their way back to land, touching leaves, roofs, open fields, and empty riverbeds waiting for their return. The world drinks, and the circle closes gently, like a sigh. You realize that water, in all its forms, teaches the same lesson: to move, to yield, to return. The river doesn't cling to the valley it carved. The ocean doesn't resist the sky that takes it. The rain doesn't question where it falls. There's a quiet wisdom in that surrender, a faith that everything finds its way back to where it belongs. At night, as you stand near the open sea, you feel the breeze shift. It carries both cool air from the waves and warmth from the land behind you. Somewhere above, droplets are already forming, invisible and weightless, preparing for the long journey home. You can almost sense their excitement, that brief, shimmering moment between stillness and motion when transformation begins. The stars overhead seem to pulse in rhythm with the tide. You close your eyes, and for a heartbeat, you can feel the entire cycle inside you, the pulse of rivers, the sigh of clouds, the hush of falling rain. Your breath mirrors the ocean's breathing, in, out, rise, fall. Far away, in some hidden mountain hollow, rain begins to fall again. It gathers in moss, drips into cracks of stone, and trickles into a growing stream. The first faint sound of moving water returns to a sleeping forest. What began as mist is now river once more. The world starts again. Everything that flows eventually comes home. The water in your veins, the rain on your window, the quiet sea beyond the horizon. All of it, one endless breath circling between earth and sky. You open your eyes to the sound of the tide blending with the memory of the river. The night is deep, calm, full. The stars shimmer in both directions, above and below. And somewhere in the distance, a single droplet begins its descent, carrying the song of the river back to earth once again. Somewhere high above the sleeping ocean, clouds gather like thoughts, slow, luminous, and full of purpose. They drift in silence across the vast sky, carrying the river's breath inside them. The sun has already slipped beneath the horizon, leaving behind a long ribbon of amber light that fades into violet. In this moment between day and night, everything seems to hover, the sea below whispering softly, the air trembling with quiet energy. Within the clouds, the journey begins again. Each droplet that once belonged to the river trembles in suspension. The air around it cools, and the world exhales. Vapor condenses into liquid, tiny beads of clarity forming in clusters so light they almost defy gravity. The droplets join hands invisibly, and a new rhythm begins. It is the rhythm of falling. The first rain begins far out at sea. You can't see it from the shore, but you can hear it if you listen. A faint hiss like distant applause. Millions of droplets touch the surface of the ocean, merging instantly with what they left behind. The waves receive them without question, as though welcoming home long-lost kin. Every drop disappears, but nothing is truly gone. The cycle continues, steady, eternal, serene. Far inland, clouds drift toward the mountains. Winds rise along the slopes, carrying moisture upward where the air grows thin and cold. The first droplets freeze into delicate crystals, swirling together like dust made of light. They settle onto cliffs and glaciers, layering one upon another until the peaks gleam white beneath the morning sun. The river has returned home in the form of snow, sleeping, waiting, dreaming of motion. Days pass, then weeks. The mountains hold their breath through winter. Each flake of snow contains the memory of the river that once flowed below. Under moonlight, the glaciers glow faintly blue, as if illuminated from within. The air smells of silence and ice. Even here, there is motion, slow, patient, invisible. The snow compresses into ice. The ice begins to flow, and deep beneath it, water whispers in secret channels, carving its way downward. When spring comes, the mountain awakens. Sunlight lingers longer on the slopes, and the first trickles of meltwater appear. They weave through cracks, gather in hollows, and form rivulets that glint like threads of glass. The sound is delicate at first, a soft dripping, a hesitant murmur. But soon it becomes a chorus. The mountain sings again. The river has been reborn. It begins as 1,000 tiny beginnings. Droplets sliding off pine needles, snowmelt running over moss, small springs bubbling from the base of rocks. Each thread finds another until they join and strengthen, becoming a stream that leaps joyfully through green valleys. The water is cold, bright, alive with minerals drawn from the heart of stone. It smells of freshness, of beginnings, a possibility. As it moves, the newborn river gathers color. The clear meltwater picks up reflections, green from moss, silver from rock, gold from sunlight. The air fills with the scent of wet earth and new leaves. You can almost hear the forest breathing with it, drinking deeply as roots draw the moisture downward. Birds arrive, insects hum, and the quiet landscape stirs awake. The river is more than water now. It's a messenger of spring, carrying life in its current. High in the mountains of Norway, there is a place where such rivers form waterfalls that fall hundreds of meters straight into fjords below. From afar, they look like long ribbons of silk trailing down the cliffs, shimmering with sunlight. When wind touches them, the spray drifts sideways, creating tiny rainbows that appear and vanish like breath. Standing near them, you can feel the cool mist on your skin, a kiss from water that was once rain, once cloud, once sea. Rivers like these are storytellers. Each one carries tales from its birthplace, the taste of stone, the sound of wind through pine forests, the warmth of morning sun on snow. Every time it moves, it writes those stories into the landscape, smoothing a pebble, deepening a hollow, leaving behind ripples that catch the light. The mountain keeps these stories, and the sea receives them again in time. At night, when the stars return, the young river glows faintly under the moon. Ice still lingers along its edges, and the air smells of cedar and frost. You can hear the distant crack of thawing glaciers, the slow heartbeat of melting snow. The water rushes onward, weaving through roots and stones, laughing softly as it finds its path. It does not know where it's going, only that it must move. And in that motion, it finds purpose. Downstream, forests open wide to greet it. Ferns uncurl their delicate fronds, moss drinks from its edges, and animals come to its banks in the early dawn. The river nourishes everything it touches without effort, without judgment. It gives because that is what it was made to do. In return, the world shapes it, slowing it with fallen branches, deepening it with rain, cooling it with shade. The balance is perfect. By midsummer, the mountain valleys are alive with color. The river winds through wildflowers and meadow grass, carrying fragments of sky in its ripples. Bees move lazily through the air, and dragonflies hover above the surface, their wings flashing like pieces of crystal. The water sings louder now, confident, full of motion. It remembers the sea, but it does not rush to return. It takes its time, exploring every bend, every pebble, every reflection. There are moments when you might stop beside such a river and feel that time has slowed to match its flow. The sunlight flickers through leaves, shadows drift like clouds across the water, and your heartbeat begins to sync with the rhythm of the current. Everything becomes one motion: air, light, breath, water. The world feels whole again. If you listen closely, you might hear something deeper than sound, a pulse that runs through mountains, valleys, forests, and oceans alike. It is the heartbeat of the planet, steady and calm, echoed in every drop of rain, every rushing stream, every tide that rises and falls. It is the same rhythm that stirs within you, the same whisper that carried you through the night and back into light. Somewhere far below, this river will one day join others. It will braid into tributaries, feed lakes, flow past forests, and eventually return to the sea. But that part of the story is still waiting. For now, it rests in its mountain cradle, young and bright and endlessly alive. And as the moon rises over the peaks, its reflection dances across the water, a silver trail leading onward, ever onward. The journey continues, but tonight the river is home. Night folds over the mountains like a soft blanket, and the young river glows faintly under the rising moon. The air has cooled. The forest exhales mist that drifts low across the valley. You can hear the steady sound of the current in the distance, not rushing now, but murmuring gently, like the earth speaking in its sleep. The stars appear, reflected perfectly in the water's surface. They tremble with the flow, turning each ripple into a path of light. The river is dreaming now, not of places it has been, but of what lies ahead: plains, deltas, tides. It dreams of endless space, of the ocean's deep heartbeat calling softly through time. Above the tree line, the snow still gleams, though the day's warmth has melted new veins of water through it. You can almost hear them forming, tiny streams trickling unseen under crusted ice, each droplet searching for a way downward. This is how the world breathes when no one is watching, quietly, constantly, completely. Every mountain stream begins with sound, the first drop falling from a branch, the small splash as it joins another, the whisper of running water that grows and gathers until it fills the whole valley. By morning, the river is singing again, a slow, winding hymn that wakes the forest. Birds answer from high in the pines. Deer step softly through ferns to drink. The entire world moves to the same gentle rhythm. Sometimes the river pauses in still pools, places where stones have shaped its rest. The surface there becomes glass, reflecting the sky so clearly that you can forget which is which. These pools are the river's moments of thought, brief, motionless seconds between flow and fall. They teach the land patience. They teach us stillness. Underneath, the water carries fragments of life, fallen petals, grains of quartz, tiny seeds waiting for soil. Each one drifts without fear, certain that its journey has meaning, even if it doesn't know where it leads. Perhaps that is what water understands best: the art of trust, the grace of release. Downstream, the river threads between moss-covered stones. Fireflies gather near the banks, their lights blinking softly above the current. The forest hums quietly, leaves breathing, insects singing, the water echoing their rhythm. Everything feels connected, as though each sound were part of one long, unbroken note stretching into infinity. Farther below, the valley opens and the river glides into wide meadows. The air grows warmer, scented with flowers that lean toward the water's edge. The surface gleams gold with sunlight. Butterflies drift lazily over it, their reflections gliding beside them like ghosts of color. The river moves slower now, thoughtful, content. It winds past roots that have learned its name, past stones polished into softness. In its depths swim fish that will one day journey farther than any bird could imagine. The river cradles them in its current, carrying them through worlds of shadow and light. At dusk, clouds gather, and the first hints of rain return. The droplets fall so lightly that they barely disturb the surface, yet each one ripples outward, merging with the rest. The cycle continues quietly, the sky giving back what it once borrowed. It's hard to tell if the river is returning to the clouds or if the clouds are returning to the river. Maybe they never were apart. As darkness deepens, the sound of water slows into a lullaby. The air grows still except for the river's breathing, its endless murmur through reeds and stone. Fireflies fade, their lights drifting into memory. Mist gathers again, cloaking the world in silver. You sit beside the bank, listening. The ground beneath you is cool and damp. The scent of moss fills your lungs. For a long time, nothing happens, and that somehow feels perfect. You're not waiting, you're simply here, part of the rhythm that has always been. Somewhere in the distance beyond the bend, the river continues its dream of seas it has yet to meet, of stars it once reflected, of the endless turning of the earth beneath its flow. Its song stretches into forever, gentle and sure. You close your eyes and the sound fills you. The steady current, the whisper of wind, the heartbeat of water moving through stone. The river sleeps, and so do you. Morning light spills gently across the ridges, painting the mountains in hues of rose and amber. Mist curls upward from the treetops, thinning as it meets the sun. Below, the river stirs, stretching itself awake. It has grown broader overnight, its surface smooth as silk. The cold mountain air softens into warmth, and everything seems to move in slow harmony. The drifting clouds, the swaying grass, the unhurried rhythm of the water. The river leaves its steep birthplace now, gliding through wide valleys where the land opens like a book. It passes meadows filled with wild flowers, their colors mirrored in the shallows. Violets, golds, pale pinks. Bees hover lazily over petals that lean toward the water's edge. In this quiet light, it feels as though time itself is flowing beside you. In some stretches, the current quickens, sparkling over clusters of stones that look like scattered stars. The air hums faintly with insects, their wings catching the sun. In others, it slows again, moving in deep, quiet pools where the world above reflects perfectly. Trees turned upside down, clouds drifting through the surface, birds slicing through their own mirror images. Everywhere the river goes, it leaves traces of life. Grasses bend toward it. Roots stretch down to drink. Even the air smells alive, damp, green, full of sweetness. The valley breathes with the river. You can almost feel the two beating together in one gentle pulse. At midday, sunlight turns the water to gold. Fish rise to the surface, catching insects in tiny bursts of motion. The ripples spread, circle upon circle, until they vanish against the banks. You watch as a dragonfly lands on a reed, its wings glinting like stained glass. For a moment, the river holds everything in stillness, bird, insect, light, before carrying it onward again. There are farms along the river now, quiet and peaceful. Fields of wheat ripple like the water they border. The people here live by the rhythm of the flow, planting when the soil is moist, harvesting before the rains. They know the moods of the river, its kindness, its calm, its silent promises. In return, they build their homes on the high ground, close enough to listen, but far enough to let it dream in peace. Somewhere ahead, the water gathers strength again. The valley narrows briefly, and the river passes through a canyon carved smooth by centuries of motion. The walls rise steep and shadowed, echoing with the sound of water against stone. The air is cool here, filled with the scent of lichen and mineral dust. In the dim light, droplets from the spray glisten like tiny stars caught in motion. Emerging from the canyon, the river finds the sun once more. It moves slower now, patient, reflective. Along its edges, reeds whisper in the breeze. Birds walk delicately through the shallows, leaving ripples that fade as quickly as thoughts. The water has lost its youthful rush. It moves with the quiet strength of something that knows where it's going. As the afternoon wanes, the sky fills with drifting white clouds. Their reflections glide across the water, stretching and breaking with every ripple. The air is thick with warmth and scent, the perfume of summer fields, the sweetness of soil after rain. Everything feels at ease, unhurried. When dusk approaches, the river becomes glass again. The surface glows with the color of the sky, amber deepening to rose, then indigo. The first stars appear and tremble in the current. Frogs begin to sing from the banks, their voices blending with the steady hush of water. The sound is soft, ancient, and full of comfort. As night settles, fireflies return. They drift low over the water, blinking in lazy rhythm. Their light reflects and multiplies until it looks as though the river has caught the stars themselves, holding them gently before releasing them downstream. The air cools. The world exhales. You stand at the edge of the valley, watching the river fade into distance, a silver thread stretching toward tomorrow. It is no longer the wild mountain torrent it once was. It has learned calmness, wisdom, grace. And yet, within its quiet heart, you can still hear the echo of its origin, the laughter of snowmelt, the crash of waterfalls, the fearless rush of beginning. As the moon rises, a thin mist forms once more. The water glows faintly like liquid moonlight. Somewhere downstream, it bends toward unknown lands, to forests, plains, and distant cities. You don't need to follow it tonight. You already know it will keep moving, as rivers always do, faithful to their purpose, tireless in their journey. The night grows deeper. The stars drift across the sky, and the river mirrors them all, silent, endless, eternal. You close your eyes, and the sound of water becomes your heartbeat. The valley sleeps, the river dreams on. By dawn, the valley mist has thinned into ribbons of silver, curling around the roots of tall trees that gather along the banks. The air feels softer here, shaded, damp, and full of quiet. The river has entered the forest now, and the forest greets it like an old friend. Every trunk leans gently toward the water, mirrored perfectly in its surface, as though each tree is looking at its own reflection and nodding hello. The light filters through in shards and patches, gold and green, weaving across the water. You can see dust motes floating in the air, moving with the rhythm of the current, rising and falling with each whisper of wind. Somewhere above, a bird calls once, its voice echoing between trunks like a bell. The forest listens, then falls silent again, as if saving the sound for later. Here the river narrows, curving through corridors of roots and moss. The banks rise steep and soft, covered in ferns that dip their fronds into the water. The surface breaks gently around them, rippling outward in slow, concentric waves. The air hums faintly with life. Unseen insects, hidden wings, the rustle of something small moving through leaves. It feels like the forest itself is breathing. In the darker reaches where sunlight barely touches, the river glows faintly with its own reflected light. Patches of sky shimmer through the canopy above, and every beam seems to hang suspended in the mist. The smell here is deep and ancient. Wet bark, fallen leaves, cool stone, and something faintly sweet. The scent of flowers blooming where no one has seen them. You notice how the forest leans close to the water, as though trying to hear its stories. The river whispers to the roots that touch its current, and in return, the trees feed its shade. The relationship is quiet but eternal, each shaping the other, both giving and receiving in silence. The forest would not exist without the river's touch, and the river would not sing without the forest's voice. Somewhere deep within, a fallen tree bridges the water. Moss covers its bark in soft emeralds, and fungi bloom like pale moons along its side. A family of otters slips from beneath it, vanishing into the current with barely a ripple. Their laughter echoes faintly, the kind of joy only wild things know, free of thought, free of time. Farther downstream, shafts of light begin to pierce the canopy. The water quickens, curling over stones, catching each beam in brief bursts of brightness. You can see schools of small fish below, moving in perfect unison, a single silver thought gliding through shadow. The forest above seems to sway with them, its reflection rippling in rhythm. As afternoon unfolds, the air grows warmer and the scent of pine deepens. The river widens once more, spreading into still pools that reflect everything above them. Each leaf, each branch, each drifting cloud. If you stare long enough, it's hard to tell which world is real, the forest or its reflection. Perhaps both are true, and the river is the bridge between them. At the edge of one such pool, a patch of lilies opens. Their white petals rest gently on the water, untouched by the current. Bees wander lazily between them, their reflections following just beneath. A frog leaps from one pad to another, sending tiny rings outward that vanish almost before you see them. Even disturbance here feels peaceful, as if motion itself were part of the calm. When evening comes, the forest glows with amber light. The trunks turn bronze, the canopy shimmers like glass, and the river looks like molten gold slipping through the trees. Birds settle into their nests, and the forest's voice lowers into whispers. Somewhere in the distance, a waterfall murmurs softly, unseen but always there, a reminder of movement beyond the quiet. You walk along the edge of the water, listening. Each step on the damp soil leaves no sound. The air has grown cooler now, filled with the scent of earth and rain. Fireflies rise between the reeds, scattering tiny stars into the shadows. Their reflections multiply in the river until it seems as though the Milky Way has fallen into the forest to rest. The night here feels endless. The water moves beneath the dark canopy, unseen but always present. You can hear it breathing between roots, sliding over pebbles, carrying fragments of light downstream. The forest sleeps, yet nothing is still. Even the silence hums softly, alive. Somewhere ahead, the trees begin to thin and a faint brightness gathers in the distance. the promise of open sky. The forest bows gently to let the river pass, its last branches dipping into the current like a farewell gesture. The water accepts this blessing, shimmering once more before gliding onward. You watch until the river disappears into that pale glow. Behind you, the forest remains, quiet, timeless, watching. Before you, the current flows toward something wider, something waiting. The air shifts. A warm breeze brushes your face. The river is leaving the shadows and heading towards the plains. You take a breath and follow, feeling the forest's calm linger behind you like the memory of a dream. Ahead, you can already hear a new rhythm, lower, steadier, the voice of open country calling. The forest thins with the morning light. Trees step back one by one, giving way to open sky. The air feels wider here, full of brightness and space. The river glides out of the shadows and stretches into the plain like a traveler stepping into sunlight after a long journey. Behind it, the forest murmurs softly, its green fading into distance. Ahead lies a horizon so vast it seems to breathe. The plains welcome the river gently. Tall grasses ripple in the wind, their tips bending like waves in slow motion. The water moves between them, silver and patient, cutting quiet paths that shimmer in the heat. The sky arches wide and empty above. No walls of trees now, only light. Clouds drift lazily, reflected perfectly on the surface below. You could almost believe the river has begun to flow through the sky itself. Every sound is softer here. The hum of insects replaces the chatter of birds. The wind sighs across the open fields, brushing the surface of the water until it forms tiny ripples that catch the sun. The scent of the plains is different too. Dry grass, warm soil, and faint sweetness from wildflowers scattered like stars among the gold. The river moves in long, slow curves, meandering through the open land as though it has all the time in the world. In some places it widens into shallow lakes, mirrors that hold both sky and land. In others it narrows again, slipping quietly between sandbars where herons stand waiting. Each step of its journey feels deliberate, calm, balanced, assured. In the heat of midday, the world shimmers. The horizon wavers in the distance, mirages forming and fading like dreams. The air hums with life unseen. Crickets, bees, the whisper of reeds brushing together. You can hear the river breathing beneath it all, steady and low, a sound that grounds the world. As it crosses the plains, the river begins to feed everything around it. It leaves behind ribbons of green that trace its movement, patches of reeds, clusters of willows, groves of fig trees that drink from its banks, and birds follow it, nesting in its shade. Antelope gather to drink at dawn, their reflections trembling in the water as the first light spreads across the grass. Even from miles away, you can tell where the river is by the line of life it leaves behind. The plains change color through the day. Gold in morning, white in noon, violet in dusk. The river changes too, mirroring each moment like a living lens. At sunset, it becomes molten bronze, winding like a thread of fire through the endless field. The air cools, and the insects grow quiet. The world slows into stillness again. Villages rest along the water's edge. You see faint trails of smoke curling into the evening sky. The scent of cooking fires drifting across the plain. Children laugh in the distance, their voices carried by the wind. The people here live with the river the way others live with seasons. They plant when it rises, rest when it falls, and listen to it the way their ancestors did, not as a resource, but as a relative. When the moon rises, the plain glows with silver light. The river reflects it perfectly, creating a twin world below. Frogs begin to sing, low and rhythmic, their chorus weaving into the sound of the water. The plain, the sky, and the river seem to merge into one vast breathing thing. You feel it, not just in your ears, but in your chest, like another heartbeat joining your own. There's a kind of silence here that isn't empty, a silence made of distance and balance. You can feel how far the sound travels, how patient the land has become. The river no longer hurries. It has learned the art of moving without rush, of existing without struggle. Every drop seems to know it belongs here, even as it keeps going. By dawn, mist rises again, not thick like in the mountains, but thin and glowing. It hovers over the grass, turning every spiderweb into a necklace of dew. The water shines gold under the first light, curving into the horizon where earth and sky blur together. From this height, you could imagine the river stretching forever, flowing toward something unseen but certain. Somewhere far ahead, the air begins to change again. You can taste salt faintly, carried by a distant wind. The river senses it too, the pull of something vast, the call of the sea. But it does not rush. It flows gently, savoring the long road through the plains, the quiet mornings, the slow afternoons heavy with warmth. The journey is as sacred as its end. You sit beside the bank as the sun climbs higher, your shadow merging with the water's edge. The river murmurs softly against the reeds, a language older than words. Its rhythm matches your breath, in, out, slow, calm. You could stay here forever and never see the same reflection twice. The day stretches endlessly. The air hums with hidden life, and the river continues, winding through time, through light, through the quiet heart of the world. Each bend reveals more sky, more space, more peace. As evening falls once more, you watch the horizon dissolve into light. The river glows faintly in the distance, a path of silver leading toward the unseen ocean. You can almost hear the sound of waves, faint and far away. But tonight, the plains belong to stillness. The water rests, the land exhales, and the stars begin their slow drift above. The river moves onward, silent and sure, carrying everything it has gathered, dust and dreams, light and memory, toward the great embrace waiting beyond the horizon. At last, the land begins to open wide and low, flattening into a horizon of water and light. The air grows heavy with warmth and the faint tang of salt. The river senses it before you do, the pull of tides, the deep rhythm of the sea, waiting somewhere beyond the line of reeds. After a journey through mountains, forests, and golden plains, it feels the nearness of its destination. Yet it doesn't hurry. Its flow has become measured, graceful, wise. The river divides as it nears the coast, branching into countless silver channels that twist through the wetlands. From above, it must look like a hand opening toward the ocean, fingers stretching out to touch the tide. Each channel carries stories of where it has been, the scent of pine forests, the dust of faraway peaks, the faint sweetness of flowers that once bloomed beside its banks. Together, they spread into a living labyrinth where land and water breathe as one. The delta hums with quiet life. Reeds rise tall and dense, their roots drinking deeply from the mingling of fresh and salt water. Cranes wade through the shallows, their long reflections rippling beneath them. Flocks of storks lift from the marshes in slow motion, their wings scattering droplets of sunlight. Every movement here seems softened, slowed, as though the world itself has decided to move at the river's pace. When the tide comes in, the water deepens and darkens, and the river's voice grows lower, blending with the pulse of the sea. Fish from both worlds meet in the half-salt currents, weaving between mangroves whose roots twist like the fingers of old hands. Small ripples brush against the trunks, and the sound is like breathing. The delta is alive, a meeting place for opposites, river and ocean, land and air, beginning and end. You can smell the salt now, faint but insistent. The breeze carries whispers of distant waves and the cry of gulls that circle high above the horizon. The light becomes softer, diffused through haze, until even the sun seems slower. In the far distance, the sea shimmers like molten glass, stretching endlessly beyond sight. The river's journey has almost come full circle, and yet this is not an ending. It is transformation. The river does not vanish here. It becomes many things at once. Some of its water sinks into the soil, feeding unseen roots. Some rises again as mist, caught by the wind to travel inland, and most of it flows onward, slipping silently into the ocean's vast embrace. What was once narrow and sure of its course now dissolves into infinity. In the evenings, when the tide retreats, the exposed flats gleam with shallow pools. Tiny crabs scuttle through the mud, leaving delicate trails like writing across the earth. The setting sun paints the world in copper and rose. Flocks of birds return to roost, their calls drifting over the reeds in soft waves of sound. The air cools, and the water mirrors the sky, pink fading to lavender, then to deep blue. At night, the delta glows faintly under the stars. The channels reflect constellations that seem to shimmer both above and below. Fireflies drift through the reeds, their tiny lights blinking in time with the distant flicker of the sea's horizon. It is impossible to tell where sky ends and water begins. Everything blends into a single, breathing world of reflection and sound. You sit on a patch of soft grass near the water's edge, listening. The current laps gently at the bank, rhythmic and calm. You can feel the heartbeat of the ocean beneath it, slow, immense, endless. The river has reached its destination, and yet, somehow, it feels more alive than ever. Its waters still move, still feed, still rise and fall with the moon. It has not died. It has become the sea's pulse. In the distance, lightning flickers faintly over the horizon, silent and far away. It doesn't threaten. It illuminates. For a moment, the whole delta flashes silver, and you can see every thread of water glinting like veins of light running through the earth. Then the darkness returns, soft and comforting. The sound of frogs begins again, joined by the steady hum of the tide. The wind shifts, and you can smell rain, the same rain that once fell on distant mountains, the same drops that began this journey. Soon they will rise again from the sea, carried upward in invisible spirals. Somewhere far away, a cloud will gather, and a mountain will wait. The story will begin again. You close your eyes. The air is cool against your skin. The water murmurs softly beside you, and the vastness of the ocean hums like a heartbeat. The river has arrived, and so have you. There is nothing left to reach for. The world is whole. River, sky, sea, silence. And somewhere deep within that stillness, you can feel it, the first invisible stirrings of vapor rising from the water, already beginning the long, slow climb back toward the clouds. The night has turned to a pearl gray dawn, and the river has disappeared into the sea. Yet the air above it trembles softly, alive with mist drifting upward like breath. The ocean exhales clouds, the sky inhales them, and the endless conversation begins again. You stand where land ends, feeling the quiet rhythm of the tide, the slow heartbeat of the world, continuing in waves that rise and fall without haste. Far beyond the horizon, sunlight touches the surface of the sea. The warmth awakens droplets invisible to the eye, lifting them into the air one by one. They spiral upward through layers of light, weightless, patient, shimmering. Each one carries with it the faintest trace of the journey it has lived, a memory of mountains, of forests, of roots and stones. It is the river's soul returning to the sky. The clouds that form above the water drift softly eastward. From below, they look like sculptures made of light, enormous, silent, unbroken. Inside them, the droplets dance together, gathering, growing heavy, preparing for their descent. You can almost hear their whispers, not words, but something older than language, a promise that every fall is a beginning. Inland, the wind stirs. It moves over plains, across meadows, and back toward the mountains that once gave the river life. The clouds follow, slow and steady. Below them, the earth is still and waiting. Forests hold their breath. Valleys shine faintly in anticipation. The cycle draws closed with a tenderness that feels almost human. When the first rain begins, it does not roar. It arrives gently, a soft tapping on leaves, a quiet shimmer on stone. The air thickens with scent, pine, moss, and clean soil. Drops roll down branches, merging and slipping into the ground. The river, though invisible now, has returned. Its spirit flows downward through the same soil that once cradled its birth. The circle is complete. Somewhere high in the mountains, snowmelt begins to stir. Springs awaken beneath rocks, their trickles joining to form the first small streams of another beginning. The droplets that once fell as rain slip into the cracks of the earth, cool and clear, ready to rise again in time. What you hear now, the gentle patter of rain, is not an end, but a quiet rehearsal for the next journey. The forest hums beneath it all. The sound of rain on leaves merges with the rustle of wind through branches, with the soft rush of distant water. The melody is endless, patient, and kind. It fills the world without demanding attention. You breathe it in, and your heartbeat slows to match it, steady, flowing, content. In the meadows, every blade of grass gleams with dew. Tiny streams form along the earth's gentle slopes, each drop chasing another until they find a hollow to rest in. From these hollows, puddles gather, then overflow, sliding downhill in silver ribbons. It is the same motion that began ages ago, repeating now with the same calm certainty. High above, clouds drift and change shape, their edges glowing where the sunlight slips through. Between them, glimpses of blue widen, a reminder that light is always waiting behind the gray. The rain eases, turning to mist. The air feels softer now, fragrant with life. Every surface, leaf, petal, stone, glistens with the reflection of a new beginning. You walk along the quiet path beside what was once the river's headwater. The ground is damp beneath your feet, the air cool against your skin. Somewhere nearby, you hear the sound of dripping, water gathering in the hollow of a rock, ready to flow again. The rhythm feels familiar, like a heartbeat you've always known. You pause to look back, though there's nothing to see except mist rising from the valley, curling upward in slow spirals. Yet you can feel it, the entire story repeating endlessly, gracefully. The water that fell has already begun its way home. As evening approaches once more, the clouds turn gold at their edges. The world exhales in light. Every drop, every ripple, every reflection becomes part of something infinite. The ocean, the sky, the river, the rain, all breathing in quiet unison. You close your eyes. The sound of rain lingers, soft and steady. You let it fill the space around you until there's nothing else. Each droplet is a whisper. Rest now, drift now, return. The circle is unbroken. The river has become the sky. The sky has become rain, and everything in its own time flows gently back to peace. The night deepens again. The world falls silent except for the soft rhythm of falling rain. A lullaby older than words, carrying you slowly, sweetly, into stillness